What's going on, guys? I'm Josh, and I have a very strong love-hate relationship with Lightroom presets. On one hand, I love them because they are the secret to creating beautiful, creative work in the most efficient way possible. On the other hand, I absolutely detest them because every single photographer who's ever made a YouTube video, I swear, is aggressively hawking these mediocre presets that are incredibly overpriced and doing a disservice to beginner photographers out there who actually want to learn how to use Lightroom. Instead, they're just creating dependencies and making sure you don't actually learn the software. The presets most people sell, I understand why they're so tempting. Lightroom has a very steep learning curve, and how beautiful does it sound to get to skip the entire process of learning and just have a one-click solution. Now, unfortunately, it's not that simple, and these presets are actually doing more harm than good. Most photographers are selling you overpriced Instagram filters, but for Lightroom. They are making 5 to 10 cool color combinations, randomly slapping each of these together with different toning, and then giving it a stylish yet ambiguous name like Commute and calling that a preset, packaging them up with 7 others and selling them for $30. These presets end up being incredibly narrow, only working on a select few types of images. The reason being, every image is unique and requires the right toning as well as the right coloring. So the odds of a preset which includes coloring and toning already locked down have a pretty low chance of being right for any given image. So as a result, you end up with preset packs that, one, I've seen a lot that just work on 3% of all your images. Very low hit rate, or two, very hyper-specific preset packs that are sold for, let's say, wedding photography that's overexposed look and shot at high noon. It gets really, really specific, and these people are just trying to sell you way too many preset packs. On top of all this, by compressing the entire editing process into this one-click solution that rarely works, no one's learning how to edit. It's more of this black magic voodoo solution where you click the button and it happens, you don't really know how, which is doing a huge disservice to aspiring photographers that should be learning how to edit. This is really stunting their growth and preventing them from actually learning how to use Lightroom. These types of presets have been my pet peeve for ages, and I was in the middle of making this video warning you guys about this kind of conning going on when suddenly I had the idea, what if I could make the exact opposite type of product? So rather than something that's rigid, forcing you onto a particular style and not helping you grow as an editor, what if I could make a product that is transparent, customizable, helps you develop your own workflow and create your own style and autonomy in Lightroom? And could I do it for an affordable price that is also easy to use? Is that possible? After months of intensive development, I am incredibly proud to introduce to you the rapid fire preset workflow, which breaks editing down into a couple of simple clicks, giving you a 30-second workflow that's customizable, educational, transparent, and intuitive. And to double down on the education, I've made sure that every single preset name is highly descriptive, so you know exactly what it does, rather than giving them these vague, stylish names like Cherub or Country Girl. You're gonna know exactly what each of these presets will do, ensuring you the quickest possible workflow with no guesswork. Whether you're a beginner that wants to learn how to use Lightroom or an intermediate that just wants a quicker process and some inspiration, then my workflow is for you. I'm sure you've heard the expression, give a photographer a fish, you've taught him for a day. Teach a photographer to fish, and you've taught him for a lifetime. Most photographers' presets are like giving you a fish. They're stifling your progress and creating a dependency on one-click solutions. My presets, on the other hand, are teaching you how to fish or edit, and they are creating a lifelong ability to have this skill and your own workflow and your own style. Best of all, learning how to use my rapid-fire preset workflow is significantly easier than learning how to fish. Now, I've designed unique workflows for landscapes, color film, urban photography, as well as black and white shooting, and these presets will work on Lightroom Classic, Lightroom CC, as well as Lightroom Mobile, so you can edit these shots on your phone. But enough of tooting my own horn, I want to take you into Lightroom and show you how these presets actually work so you can see for yourself. If you'd like to buy them, you can do so by clicking the link in the description down below, and I forgot to mention, it also comes with a complimentary course that goes in depth on how to use them. But enough introduction, I am sure you're curious how these workflows actually work. I'm now going to give you an introductory walkthrough on using my preset workflows. Jumping right into it, we've got Lightroom Classic CC open. So let's open up this image of Hong Kong. Now I'm going to use my urban preset workflow for this, And I want to point out that the urban preset workflow works great on any types of shots that are urban. So it could be cityscapes, street photography, even portraiture. It's really just designed for the complexity of the coloring you'll see in the urban environment. And this photo nicely encapsulates that. So head to the Develop tab and open up your preset panel. If you don't see it, you just have to hover over this diamond right here and lock it in right here. So before we actually start to edit this photo, we need to do a couple things. We need to make sure that the temperature is right, and you just want to standardize this so it's looking a little bit cold. Just going to warm it up a little bit. And you want to make sure the exposure is right. And this photo is properly exposed. It's not too bright, not too dark. And now that we've standardized the image, we are ready to jump into the presets. Now, this is not your typical preset workflow. This isn't going to be a one-click fits all, or realistically one-click fits few. These are designed to let you customize your image exactly how you want it without really having to play with sliders too much. Let's go ahead and work through all of them really quickly. First off, we have contrast. This is really simple. Just hover over them to see which one you like and click the one you want to stick with. Then we have tones, and this is going to adjust the highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. Now I want to point out that I've given these names like bright highlights. They don't only affect the highlights. You'll see they affect the highlights all a little bit differently, but they also are designed to accommodate by bringing down the blacks and shadows to compensate, keeping for a nicely balanced image. So you can see I have different degrees of intensity. Moving on, we've got the contrast punches, and this is meant to keep your tones very neutralized, except for adding a nice little punch. Then we've got dark shadows, which is meant to prioritize bringing down the shadows, and of course there's some compensation added to make sure we bring up the highlights and the whites to keep it neutral. Then we've got neutral, which is very flat, and a couple other options. So I really like a medium contrast punch, or maybe I dig the dark shadows light. Then we've got faded blacks, and this is just to give your image a nice little old school look. So this actually adjusts your tone curve. Now I want to remind you here, I've designed this preset workflow with transparency in mind. A lot of presets are all about this wizardry, where you click a button and you have no idea how it did everything. I want this to be very, very clear. So you hit one of these buttons and you see, okay, this is what happened. The tone curve has been adjusted to bring up the shadows and gray them out a little bit. So you can turn that on or keep it off. I'm going to keep it off. Then we've got clarity, and this is really simple. Just going to adjust our clarity. I tend to opt for obnoxious or medium, but there's always that ultra option. We're going to leave it at medium. And then we've got coloring. Now this is what the bulk of these presets are all about. This is what really brings the life into your images. Now, not every single one of these colors is going to work for every single one of your images. They're meant to work for a wide variety of different city colors and times of day. So deep blue is not going to look good on this. This is better for the twilight hours or just any photo with a lot more blue in it we want to bring out. These golden hour ones are going to look great. We've got a couple different options. I really dig golden hour 3, so I'm going to select it, but let's see what else we've got. So these gritty greens are a lot of fun. I also like gritty greens 3. Purple perfection 2 is looking sick. So we've got just a bunch of different options. Now I want to point out that, actually this is my favorite. We're going to go with Turquoise Delight. Now, I want to point out that Turquoise Delight does not only adjust the turquoise. In fact, I'll show you what this did. This adjusted all of this. It's the HSL tab as well as the split toning. However, I did want to give these very simple cues as to what they're going to prioritize. So Stark Americana is reds and blues, Gritty Greens are greens, but naturally they adjust a lot more colors. However, I wasn't going to just opt for these cool, stylized, slick names that a lot of preset designers make. I wanted them to be very descriptive so you know which ones to jump to really quickly so your workflow can be super quick. And lastly, we have our vibrance. And this is important for adjusting how extreme you want the coloring to be. So maybe you think this coloring is a little bit strong. We're going to lighten it down a little bit. These are two different options. Maybe we want to keep it in the middle. Or maybe we think, man, let's just drive it all the way up and have some insanity. I usually keep it in the middle, and I dig medium too. So there we have it. We have our fully colored image, and now we're going to move on to our finishing touches preset pack. And this is a very simple way just to polish off your image and make sure it's perfect. So sharpening, this is something you're not going to notice when you're just hovering over it. However, if you zoom in, you'll watch this. So this is off and this is on. I like to sharpen most of my images unless it's nighttime and it's already super grainy. Then we have noise reduction, and again, you have to zoom in to see it, but you'll see we have a little bit of noise, and noise reduction is just a great way to soften it a little bit and not see as much. It's a good option.
You can turn it off if you'd like though. Then scrolling down to lens correction, by default it's off. If we turn it on, it's going to adjust our distortion and vignetting. Now, make sure you have your lens profile selected. My Canon 200mm sometimes has issues being identified, but as you can see, I type in Canon and it quickly fixes that. 9 times out of 10, it will automatically identify your lenses, so you won't actually have to press this. But as you can see, it adjusts our vignetting and distortion. If you turn it off, we have a little bit more vignetting, and I actually prefer it on. Then we have chromatic aberration. Now this image is not a good example of this, so I'm gonna go to a landscape photo that I've shot of my friend Henry. You're not gonna notice anything at first, but when we zoom all the way in, notice how the edges around him are a little bit purple and funky, and we do not like that. Now chromatic aberration is gonna solve this. There are a couple different options. We can try auto and see how that works. Doesn't make a huge difference, which is why I've designed the purple one. And as you can see, those purple edges go perfectly away. Maybe it doesn't matter, you don't have any chromatic aberration, you can always leave it off. And lastly, we're going to finish it off on this image. We've got vignetting, light, medium, and obnoxious, or maybe we want to keep it off. I think this image looks best without it. And lastly, we have the steps for true success, and that is following my Instagram. And as you can see, it is literally, physically, metaphysically impossible to unfollow it, so you're locked in.
And that's it. I am so incredibly stoked on how my rapid fire preset workflows came out. I use them all the time for myself now, so hopefully you will too. If you want to buy them, there's a link in the description. I think you'll really enjoy it. Definitely let me know how you like them. I'd love to hear some feedback. Anyway, guys, if you want to save yourself some time and energy and be editing with more creativity and learning how to use Lightroom, again, you're going to want to buy my workflow. That is all I have to say now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you eventually.